The biggest mistake, the button that destroyed a city. Imagine you're at work, something goes wrong, you panic, and then you see a red button. A button that says emergency. You take a deep breath, you press the button, and in that moment, you didn't save anything. You just exploded an entire city. This isn't a movie. This actually happened. April 26, 1986. Chernobyl. One man pressed the AZ-5 button, the button that was supposed to shut down the nuclear reactor. But instead of shutting down, it created the biggest nuclear explosion in history. 400 times more radiation than Hiroshima. An area the size of London uninhabitable for 20,000 years. All because of one button. But how does an emergency button become a destruction button? The answer will shock you, because this wasn't an accident. It was arrogance. It was a mistake they knew would happen. Today, I'm going to expose the error nobody talks about. And I'm going to prove to you that the real villain of Chernobyl wasn't the reactor. It was the system that created it. To understand Chernobyl, you need to understand the Soviet Union of the 1980s, a place where showing weakness was worse than dying. In this system, you had two options: report success or disappear. There was no middle ground. The engineers knew about the problems, but nobody had the courage to speak up, because telling the truth was treason. And it was in this environment that the RBMK was born, the Soviet nuclear reactor. It was cheap, it was quick to build, and it had a bonus. It produced plutonium for nuclear bombs while generating electricity. 2 in 1, the Soviet dream. But there was a problem, a tiny technical problem. The engineers called it positive void coefficient. Sounds complicated? Let me translate it into human language. The reactor was a ticking time bomb. Most nuclear reactors are smart. If they get too hot, they slow down automatically. It's like a car with automatic brakes, but the RBMK was the opposite. If it heated up, it accelerated. It was a car without brakes going down a mountain. The faster it went, the faster it went. And the worst part, the guys who designed the RBMK knew about this defect, but instead of fixing it, they hid it, marked it as secret. The plant operators were never warned. Now let's meet the people. Because Chernobyl wasn't destroyed by machines, it was destroyed by men. Men with fear, men with pride, men who thought they knew better than the reactor itself. First, Anatoly Dyatlov, the deputy chief engineer. This guy was tough. Military, authoritarian. For him, there was no such thing as impossible. He had a mission to conduct a safety test that had already been postponed 3 times. Second, Leonid Toptanov, 26 years old, junior operator. It was his first night alone controlling Reactor 4. Imagine, you on your first day of work, and your boss tells you to do something that seems dangerous. Would you question it? Third, Alexander Akimov, the shift supervisor. An experienced guy, loyal. But in Soviet culture, being loyal meant obeying. Even when your instinct screamed, "This is wrong." And there was one more character, the most important of all. It wasn't human. It was the AZ-5 button. It was the Doomsday button, but nobody knew it yet. April 25th, 1986, 11 p.m. The test begins. The idea was simple. Simulate a power outage and see if the reactor could cool itself for a few seconds. A safety test. Ironic, isn't it? But right from the start, they ignored the first rule. Never lower the reactor power below 700 megawatts. Why? Because below that, it becomes unstable. It's like driving a fuel truck in low gear on a steep hill. Too dangerous. But Dyatlov didn't care. "Continue," he ordered. Toptanov looked at Akimov. Akimov looked at the panel. They knew it was wrong. But what could they do? Disobeying Dyatlov meant losing your job, or worse. Second rule broken. They removed the control rods. These rods are like the reactor's brakes. They control the nuclear reaction. The manual said, keep at least 30 rods inserted. They left. EIG-8. Just 8. The reactor was now naked, unprotected, like a car going 200 kilometers per hour with no seatbelt, no brakes, and the driver blindfolded. And Dyatlov, he continued, "Start the test." Toptanov typed the commands. His hands were sweating so much he could barely press the buttons. And then, the unthinkable. The reactor power started to rise. Not gradually, exponentially. 200 megawatts. 501,000. 5,000 in seconds. The reactor entered thermal runaway. It was an uncontrolled nuclear reaction. An atomic bomb forming. Akimov shouted, "Shut it down! Shut everything down!" Toptunov, in pure panic, did the only thing he knew how to do. He pressed the button. The AZ-5 button, the emergency button, the button that was supposed to save everyone. And in that moment, he signed the death sentence for thousands. What happened next shouldn't have been possible. When Toptunov pressed AZ-5, all 211 control rods started to descend. They were supposed to stop the reaction. It was supposed to be salvation. But there's a detail. A detail that the designers knew and never told anyone. The tips of the rods were made of graphite, and graphite accelerates the nuclear reaction. It was like throwing gasoline on a fire, thinking it would put it out. In the first 3 seconds after pressing the button, the reactor power exploded from 5,000 megawatts to 33,000. The nuclear fuel melted instantly. The reactor water turned to steam in a fraction of a second. The pressure inside the core was impossible to contain. 1:23 a.m. April 26, 1986, 2 explosions. The first was steam, the second was hydrogen. Together, they ripped off the reactor lid, a piece weighing 1,000 tons, and threw it in the air like a coin. The core was exposed. The radioactive heart of Chernobyl was naked, vomiting radiation into the sky. The operators in the control room didn't understand what happened. They felt the ground shake. They saw the lights go out. They heard the explosion. But when they looked out the window, they saw the impossible. The roof was gone. And where the reactor should have been, there was only fire. Dyatlov, in shock, muttered, "This is impossible. The core can't explode." But it did explode. And the worst part, what they were seeing wasn't just fire. It was radiation. Invisible, silent, lethal. And it was spreading. The explosion happened at 1:23 a.m. But you know when the Soviet government admitted there was a problem? 36 hours later. For a day and a half, they lied. They said it was just a small fire. Nothing serious. Stay calm. Meanwhile, just 3 kilometers from the reactor was Pripyat, a city of 50,000 people, families, children. On the morning of the 26th, they woke up and went to work. The children went to school. People had barbecues. They didn't know they were breathing death. Radiation has no smell, no color, no sound. You don't feel it killing you. In fact, some residents climbed onto rooftops to watch the beautiful fire. They saw a bright blue light coming from the reactor. They thought it was beautiful. It was Cherenkov radiation. Lethal. Only on the 27th at 2 p.m. did the government finally evacuate Pripyat. They said, "It's temporary. Just for 3 days. Leave everything here." People took only a small suitcase. They never returned. Pripyat became a ghost town. Frozen in time, 1986, forever. But the real heroes, they were the liquidators. 600,000 men who were sent to clean Chernobyl. They threw sand and lead into the reactor. They cleaned the roof of radiation with their hands. Why? Because the robots burned out. The radiation was so intense, it melted the electronics. So they sent men. Each one could work 90 seconds before the dose became lethal. 90 seconds to save the world. So, who is the villain of Chernobyl? Dyatlov? Toptunov? The AZ-5 button? No. The real villain was the system. A system that valued secrecy over safety, that punished honesty, that hid fatal flaws and called it patriotism. The RBMK designers knew about the defect, but they hid it. The officials knew the test was dangerous, but they demanded it continue. Dyatlov knew he was breaking rules, but he was afraid to fail. Everyone knew, but nobody spoke up. Why? Because the system didn't allow it. Chernobyl wasn't an accident. It was the inevitable collapse of a rotten system. And here's the lesson nobody wants to hear. This can happen again. Right now. Today. Anywhere where secrets are more important than safety. Where admitting error is seen as weakness. The question isn't, can it happen again? The question is, where will it happen again? Today, Chernobyl is covered by a steel sarcophagus. 36,000 tons. It cost $2 billion. It will last 100 years. After that, nobody knows. The exclusion zone is still there. 30 kilometers of silence. Nature returned. But humans, never again. Toptunov died 14 days after the explosion. Radiation poisoning? He was 26 years old. Akimov too. Dyatlov survived, but was imprisoned. He spent the rest of his life saying it wasn't his fault. Maybe he was right. Maybe everyone was right. And that's why it was so wrong. So what did we learn? That the most dangerous mistake isn't the technical mistake, it's the human mistake. It's believing you know better. It's hiding the truth because it's inconvenient. It's pressing the button because someone told you to. And the biggest lesson of all, the button that was supposed to save the world almost destroyed it. Because someone forgot to ask, what if we're wrong? Now I want to hear from you. What dangerous button are we about to press? Today? Artificial intelligence without regulation? Ignored climate change? Modern nuclear crisis? Leave your opinion in the comments. And if you want to keep discovering the biggest mistakes that shaped our history, subscribe to the channel. Because every week, I expose the truth that nobody wants to hear. Until the next mistake, and remember, history isn't about the past. It's about not repeating the same mistakes. Bye.